Tama, the witch doctor for Satu's village, was not in Satu's village. He'd been gone for a couple of weeks now. He was on the other side of Great Sangir Island, a couple days' walk away. He had gone there because there were many people with stomach sickness in that village, and they had asked him to come because they'd heard his magic was strong and he could have the best devil dances and the most powerful spirit feasts to get rid of sickness. He had been having a spirit feast for 3 days now. Tama had been beating on his spirit gourd drum. He had been spreading his charms around him. He'd been rubbing the magic oils on himself, and all the people of the village who were not sick had been gathering around and dancing and drinking and just having really what they considered to be a pretty fun time. And the sick people of the village lay on mats on one side of the village square, sick, and not getting better. It was on the 3rd day of the devil dance, of the spirit feast, that the messenger from Satu's village arrived. Excited and worried, he'd been sent by Chief Meradin to tell Tama, There's trouble back at the village. But before he could explain what the trouble was, Tama said, I already know about the teacher. And the messenger got a little bit of a chill. It always made him kind of nervous when he would realize that Tama was different. He was special. He was powerful. He could communicate with the evil spirits and they would tell him secrets like that. Tama already knew that the teacher had arrived. Tama said to him, you go back, tell Chief Meradin I'm coming. Chief Meradin should have sent him away. And the messenger said, I know, but Chief Meradin tried and he couldn't get them to leave. I will come. Go tell Chief Meradin. And then Tama began to pack up his charms, put them into his carrying sacks. And the people who were dancing and having a good time said, wait, where are you going? The people, our villagers are still sick with the stomach sickness. Tama said, I must go. In my village, there is a worse sickness. My villagers have heart sickness. There is a teacher and his family who have come, and they have made their hearts want something different. They've made their hearts want something new, and that is a sickness that I must go and cure. And Tama packed everything up and he left. He began walking. He was going to be walking for 2 days, and he thought to himself, just to make sure the spirits will help me out, I need to make sure that I am suffering enough. Because Tama believed that the spirits will only help you if you've gone through something that's really terrible, if you've shown that you really want their help by hurting yourself or feeling terrible. So Tama said, I will not eat all the way back. I will not eat for the 2 days that I'm traveling back to my village. And he didn't, and along the way all that he would do is he would think about what could he do to get rid of this teacher and his family. And he also thought about the fact that he was worried about Satu. See, Tama and Chief Meradin were pretty good friends, pretty good acquaintances. The chief and the witch doctor usually needed to work together. And Tama knew that Satu was a smart boy. We learned that yesterday. Tama figured things out, Satu figured things out very quickly. And Tama wanted to use Satu's smartness, Satu's intelligence, to train him and be the next witch doctor in the village when Tama would be too old to do it any longer. And now he was worried that this teacher would come and change Satu's mind, fill Satu's heart with that new medicine, with that new magic, and make him not want to be the witch doctor anymore. Tama didn't want that. As he arrived back at the village the 2nd day, he was walking up the beach, and he saw a house on the beach. It was getting dark already. It was getting pretty dim as the sun set, but he could see bright lights coming out of the windows of this house. And not just lights, but lots of motion. People streaming into the house. It looked like pretty much everyone from the village was going into this new house that had sprung up on the beach while Tama was gone. He got close enough to where he found that there was a stone wall built around the house. And he crouched behind the stone wall and peeked over the top and watched as people came from the village and filled up the building. The windows were all open, the doors were wide open, lights spilled out everywhere. Tama watched, wondered if he dared to maybe go closer, and he was about to get up from the stone wall and come around to one of the windows to see better when suddenly a noise he'd never heard before, a sound that was different than any sound he'd ever heard before, came out of the building. And it was the sound of a man doing this. A mighty fortress is our God. A heart never failing. Now you remember that when Satu heard that song, heard that man singing, Satu felt something inside. Do you remember what it was Satu felt inside when he heard that? Remember? He felt happy, kind of joy, kind of excited. It was different than anything he'd ever felt before. Tama did not feel that way. Tama almost knocked himself out running away from that building as he heard that music. He was so worried, scared, nervous. He didn't know what to make of it. He turned, he ran, he almost bumped into a palm tree, staggered over a rock, and ran all the way to the village, up the ladder of his hut, and inside the hut. And he stopped panting. Why had that been so scary? What was so scary about that? There must have been some powerful magic in what was coming out of that house on the beach. That music. It was just so different than the music that would happen at the devil dances with the drums and the people chanting and screeching. And it was it beautiful? Tama wasn't sure, but he didn't like it. And then Tama realized something else was different. Something smelled different. Am I in the right hut? This is not how my hut normally smells. Tama felt his way through the dark hut and found his fireplace and found, what is this? A pile of wood next to the fireplace. Usually there's maybe one or two little branches he had left there. A nice pile of wood, and he put some onto the fire area. He got out his little flint and started the fire, and as the light spread, he could look around, and what did he see? But a hut that did not look like his hut anymore. Well, it was still vaguely his hut. His things, his belongings were still there, but there were so many other things that were new. Like, for example, the firewood. And then over on this shelf, food. A stock of food and roots and plants that had been set there. And then over here, well, right where that big gaping hole had been in the ceiling, there was no hole anymore. It had been patched. And the walls, they didn't have those holes that left the draft through at night. And that weak spot on the floor that he always had to avoid so he wouldn't fall down into where the pigs lived below. There was new wood over it. It was solid now. And there was still that smell, and he finally realized where the smell was coming from. It was coming from a little seashell, not very small actually, kind of a larger seashell that had water in it, and on the surface of the water was a bunch of flowers, and it was sitting on the biggest shelf in his hut. Where did all this come from? Just then he heard footsteps coming up the ladder. He turned to look, and it was Chief Meradin. Chief Meradin, who had not gone down to the beach house where everyone else was. "I saw you arrive," said Chief Meradin. "You must have heard the magic coming from their house." "Yes, I did. That is very powerful magic. How come you've not gotten rid of them?" "I tried," said Chief Meradin. "I put them to live in your hut. I kept them here because I thought perhaps the spirits would scare them off or make them sick." "Well, that obviously didn't work," said Tama. "The spirits must have run off into the jungle when they heard such singing." "Yes," said Chief Meradin. "Spirits ran into the jungle, and I think the people are going to run after this teacher. They're going to keep following him and his family. And you know what that means, right? That means that they're going to want to do what he says, and he doesn't want them to have devil dances, I'm sure. He's going to teach them other things from his books. Have you seen those? He calls them books. They're like a box with lids in it." "Yes, I've heard of those," said Tama. "Yes, there's powerful magic in that. I've heard from other witch doctors from other islands. They've had teachers come, and the teachers convince the people to follow the magic of the books. And the people then lose interest. They don't want to dance. They don't want to have a devil feast. They don't want to drink." "Oh," said Chief Meradin, "then there'll be no more fun. That's the most fun we get. What can we do?" "I have an idea," said Tama. "I was thinking about this. The people are only going after the teacher because he's teaching them something new, because it's different. So if we brought somebody else to teach them something new that would not change their minds about the devil dances, then we wouldn't have to stop doing those fun feasts and getting drunk and having parties." "What do you have in mind?" said Chief Meradin. Tama said, "What we need is to go and get some of those teachers from one of the other islands, those teachers that teach Islam, yes, they come and they tell people, as long as you pray to Allah, that's all you have to do. Otherwise, you can just still have your devil dances and still have your feasts and still have your drinking and just pray to Allah. That's a good idea, said Chief Meradin. That's a really good idea. Yes, because, I think it's important we get rid of this teacher. The fire mountain has been angrier lately. The fire mountain. You remember Satu was watching it, right? Satu loved to watch a fire mountain from his perch. And that fire mountain had been making lots of smoke. And lots of thunder that would rumble. It seemed to rumble from under the ocean. There have been lots of glowing in the night coming from the far side of the fire mountain. Tama said, yes, I noticed that as I arrived. I think that the fire spirits who live in Fire Mountain are angry that the teacher is here. That's another reason we need to get rid of them. So go, said Tama, go get the Islam teachers, make a plan, go find them, and then when they come, you can give them some nice land to live in. Oh, I know, this would be perfect. There's that beautiful slope of land that goes up from the beach. It starts right behind where the teacher is living, where his house is on the salt grass that belongs to the sea spirits. You can give them that beautiful slope of land. They can build a house up at the top. They can have gardens going down the front slope. It will be beautiful. And then we'll help them garden. We'll build them a new house. It will be great. They'll love it here. Yes, said Meradin. That is a good plan. Okay, and that way they won't change our customs. Meradin left to go make his plans. Tama went to sleep. The following morning, he got up, he looked out of his front door, and he could see down the beach. He was able to actually see the teacher's house down there on the salt grass of the beach shoreline. And he could see that it was white. It was painted white. He had never seen anything like this. And it had this beautiful white stone wall around it. And were those flowers growing in that garden? This is just too different. It's too nice. And then he spotted someone walking along the beach. No, two someones. One of them he recognized. It was Satu. He had not seen him yet since he returned. But the other one was this boy about Satu's height. And he had, well, what color was his hair? Red-orange hair. And they were walking along on the beach and talking and picking up rocks and throwing them in the water. And they were having a great time. And it made Tama sick. They're getting Satu to change. They're teaching him their ways. He's swallowing the magic from their boxes with many lids. And he's not going to want to be the next witch doctor. I have to change this. He started making his breakfast, thinking about how he would get his charms out after breakfast. And he'd take care of this problem. When he heard the sound of someone coming up the ladder. Must be Chief Meradin, he thought. He turned to look, and the head coming up the ladder did not have the typical hair color of Chief Meradin and everyone else in the village. It was bright yellow hair, and then it was followed by a little face, and then it was followed by a pink dress coming up, worn by a little girl with yellow hair and bright blue eyes. She came right in to the cabin, to the hut. She had a bunch of flowers in her hand, and she looked over, she saw Tama, she waved at him. She went over, took the old flowers out, because they were wilted by now, threw them out of the hut, put the fresh flowers in the water, she arranged it. Then she went over to Tama and she talked to him, and he had no idea what she was saying, of course. But she looked at him and she smiled and she kind of laughed and she grabbed his hand and chattered away. And all Tama could think was, who is this? She's like a little pink bird. She's just talking and chattering all the time. And why am I feeling something inside here again? This feels so different inside. I've never felt like this before. The little girl proceeded to clean the cabin, clean the hut. She went over and got a broom that was in the corner. He hadn't even seen a broom ever before in his life. And now here was this broom made of a stick with some palm branches tied to it. And she swept out the hut. She took the kettle that he was going to use to cook his breakfast. She went down to the ocean, scrubbed it out with some sand, rinsed it out, then brought it back, got fresh water from the spring on the way back, and set it back inside his house. Tama just sat there the whole time, mouth hanging open. What is going on? Why is she doing this? She cleaned the whole place, started to go down the ladder, turned, ran back to Tama, threw her arms around one of his legs and gave him a hug. Tama just stood there, watching this pink-yellow girl just hug his leg. And she smiled and she took off. And Tama knew he had to do something. Because if just this little girl by herself, speaking a language that he couldn't even understand, could already make him feel Like maybe the teacher was good, and maybe the teacher's magic was good, and maybe he shouldn't chase the teacher out after all. This was dangerous. If just this little girl alone could already start to change his mind, imagine what the teacher could do, especially when he learned the language of the villagers and started teaching them his songs and telling them things from his boxes with lids. No, they had to go. So Tama went over and he got out his carry sack and he pulled out from it 3 things. The skull of a goat, a large shark tooth, and his most powerful charm of all, a dead, dried snake. He mixed up magic oil from a container. He rubbed it all over his body. He took some herbs that were crushed, rubbed it on his body, and then he scraped some off, and he wiped it on the snake. Yes, the snake was what he would use. If he could just get this snake ready and get it placed where the teacher or one of his family would touch it, something would happen to them. That always happened. The spirits would cause someone to have an accident or to get sick or to feel scared or to go out of their minds. Yes, it would not fail. And he got it all ready. And as he was getting it ready, Chief Meradin came up the steps and looked and said, "Oh, that's how you're going to do it, huh?" "Yes, that's how I'm going to do it. I must work fast. We don't have time anymore. So, you go and get the Islam teachers. Take your men, take a boat and go. This is urgent." Chief Meradin asked him, "Should I take my son Satu so he's not here and hanging around with the red-haired boy?" "No," said Tama, "you leave him here because I want Satu to see what happens when someone touches my charms. When someone messes with the evil spirits, Satu must see that the power of the evil spirits is stronger than the power of those teachers. Now go!" And Chief Meradin went. He got his men. They got in a boat. And they sailed off around the edge of the island. But 2 pairs of eyes were watching as they sailed away. And we'll find out who they were tomorrow.